Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in today. Today, I'm going to walk you through my website and all of the resources and information that's available on there, whether you're an educator, a parent, or really anyone that's interested in advocacy or my journey in the Miss America program. I'm here to walk you through this and kind of let you know where to find all of the information. So, this is what you find when you get to the homepage. We scroll down, there's a little bit about me, my journey in the Miss America program, my experience in undergrad and law school, my skill set here, of course, and just a quote that has kind of inspired my journey from Heather French Henry, who is Miss America 2000. Volunteering is at the very core of being a human. No one has made it through life without someone else's help. So if we go back up, the next tab is all about me. And again, just more information about where I come from, who I am. I actually come from a town called Humble, but it's spelled like humble, which is just a little fun fact about me. And it really shaped me into the person that I am and inspired me to come to LSU, get outside of my familiar bubble. And now I am practicing in Baton Rouge as an attorney, but I'm hoping to become a member of the bar in more states. I'd like to take the uniform bar exam and become able to be licensed in 39 states. I doubt that I will actually become licensed in all 39, but I just really want to be able to have those doors open to me. All right, the next tab is Miss America, my why for Miss America, why I compete in the Miss America organization. If you haven't noticed, the theme is philanthropy, performing, and positive change, the 3 Ps. And it's really shaped me into the person that I am and how I'm able to give back aside from just my platform. And then that brings me into my community service initiative. People used to call it a platform. For a brief period of time, it was called a social impact initiative, but it all means the same thing. It's my mission and my community service work focus within the Miss America organization and outside of it. So this just kind of goes through the 3 pillars: outreach, mentorship, and education. And we'll get into this curriculum when we go to the other tab that focuses on Hannah Helps the Homeless, Hannah's Helping Hands, and all of the companion material. And then we also get into Miss America Fit. This just gets into my personal journey with fitness, healthy living, my practice, and my plan as Miss Louisiana to serve as the state spokesperson for healthy living. Now into my advocacy portion, which is the Hannah Helps the Homeless tab. This is where you will find links to order my books. You can click that Shop Now button, click the order button here for Hannah Helps the Homeless. The main difference between the books is that Hannah Helps the Homeless is written for 2nd grade through 5th or 6th grade. So it's for a little bit older student who already has a basic understanding of differences and being able to help. I wrote Hannah's Helping Hands, which is my 2nd book, because I went to go talk to a class of preschoolers, which is something I truly never thought I would do. And they had a lot of good questions, but it was clear that Hannah Helps the Homeless was a little advanced for where they were, and I wanted some material that was just better at meeting them where they were and was able to help them understand more about differences, families, homes, and giving back at the most basic level. So if you click this link here, this is a PDF download of the Family Discussion Guide that can work with either Hannah's Helping Hands or Hannah Helps the Homeless. It was created to work with Hannah Helps the Homeless, but it will apply for either book. So this takes you to that Family Discussion Guide. I created this back when I first published Hannah Helps the Homeless. So it was very timely then. All of the information is still up to date because unfortunately the housing crisis is not really all that different years later. So it still teaches you about some common misconceptions, some facts, some statistics, and where I pulled all of that data from. Then you get into the discussion questions that help open a dialogue for families. You can use this with your family. You can use this as an alternative to the classroom curriculum that we're going to get into in a second, but it's really meant as a conversation starter. If you would prefer your classroom lesson to be more of a read aloud and then classroom discussion, this could really work for that. And as you can see, I've broken down the questions into different age groups. So for younger kids, you can ask about the difference between a want and a need rather than some of these higher level questions. Another thing about my book is that Hannah Helps the Homeless has a glossary of terms at the end so that everyone is very clear about the terminology that we're using. Hannah's Helping Hands doesn't have that because it's just a lot simpler. The words are very clear. Whereas Hannah Helps the Homeless, we're using things like situational homelessness, temporary homelessness, chronic homelessness. So all of those kinds of terms just have very clear definitions at the end. Again, we can get into some more questions here. And all of these tie back into Hannah Helps the Homeless or Hannah's Helping Hands. This just goes through the CARE acronym created by the National Coalition for the Homeless and teaches you about different ways that you can give back. The C stands for contribute, A stands for advocate, R, reach out, and E, educate. So you can walk through all of these steps. I provided information from the National Coalition for the Homeless, and then just some additional information that I compiled. All of my sources are linked in, so you can copy those links. And then I also have some locations with Housing First groups. Housing First has really expanded past just these locations now and is going into nearly every state. So that's really awesome to see. And if you want to learn more about Housing First, there's a lot of great books. Of course, they're higher level than Hannah Helps the Homeless or Hannah's Helping Hands, but it's great for really diving into more substantive conversations. All right, next we're going to get into my classroom curriculum. This has been updated. I just need to link it to my website for Hannah's Helping Hands instead of Hannah Helps the Homeless for those younger students, but it's still the same material. And for those younger teachers, if your classroom feels like they're ready for Hannah Helps the Homeless rather than Hannah's Helping Hands, feel free to use a 3-5 lesson plan instead of a K-2. Usually I go and teach a 2nd grade classroom every single year or a 3rd grade classroom. I most of the time will opt for the K-2 lesson just because it's much simpler, especially if we're doing a read aloud of Hannah Helps the Homeless too. I know that I can get through the read aloud and the activity in less than an hour. So if you're concerned about time, you can really think of it that way. I'll do this poverty budgeting simulation, which is excellent for teaching about scarcity and really just slots into those May social and emotional learning blocks. So that's why I teach this lesson so often. This is the sheet that you'll use, or another thing that I've used if I've just projected this on the screen and then they use Expo markers on their desk to denote the different boxes. So you're not having to print out so many copies if that's something you're concerned about. I will also put this on the screen a lot of times because it just makes it easier for everybody to understand and see that these are their options for rent. These are their options for bills. And then of course we get into those more advanced lesson plans. There's an advanced version of the guided reading, Myths and Truths About Homelessness, a sheet to go with it, and then a more advanced version of the poverty budgeting simulation. And that poverty budgeting simulation you can use for any grade. I know that I did it in undergrad and college, and we used the Spent budgeting simulator that is also available online. That's not something that I created, but it's an excellent tool. So really, this lesson plan works for any age. This is another one that is very adaptable based on your classroom. And then the dinner is used for larger groups. I know that I've read about several universities that have used this. If schools have like a family night, sometimes they'll do this and they'll collect canned goods for the community. So this is a really great one for bigger groups. All right, and then finally, we're going to get into my podcast and blog series. So you might have heard the podcast episodes on my Instagram or on TikTok. But actually, if you go to my website, there are very detailed blog posts with resources linked. So let's just pick a random one. Let's go to this 2nd episode of the 1st season. As you can see, I have linked the law, Texas Education Agency resources, all different kinds of things. And then I do the same thing in season 2, episode 1 for Louisiana. I really wanted to make this podcast series accessible to a variety of states. And usually what I would do is I would pick a sample school district or a sample state education agency, and we would use those to see how could this translate to my home school district. So if you are a family that is facing housing insecurity or could use these resources, feel free to go to my website as a starting point. But the best points of contact for you are going to be your local school district and your state Department of Education. Every single state is going to have a tab that's going to tell you about the McKinney-Vento Act. They might not say homelessness or homeless, but if you look for McKinney-Vento, you will be able to find the people that you need to contact or the resources that you're looking for. Now, if you're not facing housing insecurity, but you might be interested in free or reduced lunch, there's an episode linked for that. If you are a family that needs help navigating the IDEA because there might be a disability for one of your children, there's an episode linked here. And if you have any suggestions for future episodes, season 2 is still very flexible, and I would be happy to record an episode answering any of your questions. Okay, well, I think that is all for my website walkthrough. Thank you for listening in. And again, if you have any questions about where to find information, have any suggestions, please feel free to contact me and I will be happy to answer those.